when I reflected, having done this short course on what is campaigning, my attempt to demystify campaigning, one thing kind of struck me, that I kind of thought the course hung together as a brief introduction, but I thought I'd missed one key element that increasingly I talk a lot about as I travel around the world supporting people to campaign. And what was that element? That element was the importance of storytelling. So I thought, if that's okay, I thought I'd offer a bonus lecture, just to address this centrally important element for an effective campaign, which is the ability to be a good storyteller. Now, before I just kind of develop this point that I want to make, maybe just to recap, if I may, in terms of what is campaigning. You'll remember that campaigning is all about identifying a clear problem and a clear solution. It's knowing who's got the power, and power is really important in campaigning. Who's got the power to make the change you want to see and what influences them. And above all else is having that burning desire to see change. So over the last 7 lectures, I've advanced this kind of 3-stage approach, the 3-stage definition really of what campaigning is all about. But I want to just add this extra element, and that's the importance of storytelling. And as I've travelled around the world, the importance of stories has really struck me. I mean, it seems that most of us really seem to grow up in a culture and a tradition of storytelling. That could be an oral tradition or a written tradition, but stories are really, really important. We're all comfortable with the idea of a story, and in a campaigning context, I think the story is really interesting. And I'd like to argue that the campaigning story has essentially 3 key elements. It's where have you come from, where are you now, and where are you going? And I think the effective campaigner is able to address those 3 key elements. I think it's really, really important. And I've been advancing this idea of linking campaigning and storytelling, for quite a while now, as I've kind of travelled around the world. And I remember being challenged, having a pushback at one workshop, and this guy said to me, he said, Jonathan, that's fine, storytelling, I get the importance of stories, he said, but isn't storytelling, he said, a bit too passive? He said, campaigners aren't passive, they're trying to make policy and practice change. And I kind of reflected on that point, and I thought he had a point. Actually, that yes, stories are important, but it's not as a narrator. It's not as an independent narrator. A campaigner is a part of the story. In essence, you're a story maker and not just a storyteller. So yes, clearly you're going to tell the story, but actually you are a key part of actually making that story happen. So maybe to make this a bit more real, I'll give you an example from some of my most recent work with the British Red Cross here in the UK. So the problem that we were seeking to tackle was the problem of destitution for people seeking asylum, seeking safety in this country, seeking refugee status. So this issue of destitution, this quaint Victorian term, which basically means no money, no job, no income, no support, no home, no nothing. So we wanted to raise awareness of the really shockingly high levels of destitution in the UK, and we wanted to promote practical policy and practice solutions that would address that problem. And we were conscious as we were starting that this is quite a difficult issue, and the one that probably had the most political support was people who had been given refugee status, had been given permission to stay in the UK, but through a variety of admin and procedural reasons found themselves destitute, with no income, no money, no home. So we sought to build evidence on that, to show the problem and to promote real, tangible solutions. And that really kind of gave us momentum around the issue. It gave us credibility. And we began to see government taking some of the issues on board, and we were a long way from getting everything achieved, but we had some momentum. Having achieved that in terms of where we got to, we thought, well, that was great to tackle it for that group of people, but there was another group of people who'd been refused status, so refused permission to stay in the UK, but they couldn't be returned home either, trapped in a limbo, and open to abuse and exploitation. And where we wanted to go in our campaign was essentially to get the evidence around this particular group of people, quite a difficult story to tell, but really important, of people who'd had their refugee application refused, but they could not be returned home. And for me, that story was really important, being really clear of where we'd come from, the momentum that we built, really clear of where we were at the present moment, the problem and the solution, but also really, really clear of the direction of travel. And I think that clarity on problem solution and that really clear story is so, so important. And I kind of argue to you that a good campaigner needs clarity on the problem, really clear what the problem is, really clear what is the solution that's going to tackle that problem, but also, and this is really important, to be able to tell a story that they are helping to make happen. I think that is so, so important. So to bring my comments to a close, I do think storytelling is really, really important. That clear message, but the ability to tell a story of where you've come from, where are you now, and where are you going. And I think a really effective campaigner needs to think about how you're going to develop your message. How are you going to build the story? What is your story and how are you going to build it? How are you going to deal with opposition? The inevitable opposition that will come to your campaign. How will you deal with that? How will you build momentum and interest for your campaign? And above all else, how are you going to gain impact? Really, really critical questions. Ones that campaigners need to address. And certainly I hope that you'll check out my website, jonathanelliscampaigns.com, for some ideas and clues in terms of addressing these questions, but also keep your eyes open for my next course that will be a more comprehensive training course that will seek really to help you give answers and tackle these fundamental questions. So that's my bonus lecture. Hope that was useful. Hope you agree with me that storytelling is important, and all the best to you as you seek to develop your story with a real clarity of where you've come from, where are you now, and where are you going. Enjoy your campaigning and take care.